There's this essay by C.S. Lewis called The Problem with X, and it's not about Elon Musk's takeover of Twitter. It was written before Elon Musk's takeover of Twitter, in fact, and X is a placeholder for the person in your life who is very troublesome and difficult to communicate with, difficult to get on with. And you should really read the essay, because I'm going to do a pretty slapdash job of summarising it here. And it's not very long, and it's freely available online. But to summarise, The Problem with X is an essay about how frustrating it is to deal with someone in your life, is that they can really make or break the quality of your life, where if the people closest to you, who you like the most, who you spend the most time with, if they treat you properly and they respect you and they like you, and you respect them and you like them, there's really nothing more you could ask for in life. If you've got that sorted, you've pretty much sorted out 90% of what makes life worth living, in my opinion, and from my observation. But on the inverse, if you're having troubles in your personal relationships with the people you're closest to, it really doesn't matter what else you have going in your life. If you've got an amazing car or amazing house, if you love your job, it doesn't really matter if the people closest to you are constantly getting on your nerves or you're constantly getting on their nerves. So I really appreciate C.S. Lewis's observations about relationships, and what he writes in The Problem with X is, so it's relationship advice that I don't think I've ever seen before. Exactly. I don't think I've seen it ever repeated since, even. And I think when I look at relationship advice, especially on the internet, it can be very sort of one-dimensional, and it's basically stuff that makes people feel good, makes them feel validated, instead of actually helping with their relationships. But the point in the essay is that the problem is not with X. It's not with your mother or your spouse or your son or daughter. The problem is not with them. The problem is you. And everyone else in your life has a problem with you that you are completely unaware of, that they've tried to tell you about, that they try to warn you about, to make you fix it, and you still haven't done it, because we're all just sort of hopeless human beings, and it's just in our nature to not see our own shortcomings. So when people say that the key to relationships is communication, I think that's almost missing it. What I see a lot online is that people complain about their spouse or about their relationship, whatever kind of relationship it is, and they say, "Oh, I've tried talking to them about it." Well, yet we've all tried talking to people about their problems. It's almost like once you say that, you said, "Oh, I've tried to talk to them about it," it's like, well, what more can you do? Try to talk to them about it and it didn't work, so now you've had to escalate it because you tried to talk about it. But the trying to talk to them about it part, I think, it's not as simple as that. I think what my grandmother used to say is that the importance of listening, which is, you might think is just another way of saying communicating, but I think it's actually radically different, where to listen to someone, instead of just to be quiet and wait for your turn to speak, you have to really try to see things from their perspective, because most people aren't very good at articulating their own feelings in a high stress situation. Probably what they're saying is a very rough approximation of what's actually going on in their inner life. But you have to actually think of yourself from the other person's point of view, from your spouse's point of view. What is it like to live with you? Not if you were another version of yourself, sort of just two of you living together. You could probably make that work quite well. But from this person who lives with you and knows you, what is it like for them to live with you? And not just to listen, but to really try to see what it is that you're doing wrong in any given situations, whatever it is that's causing the problem. And I find this a really powerful technique for conflict resolution in relationships, is to, before you've even tried to communicate about a problem, or after, or at any point really, just try to see yourself through the eyes of someone else, and to do the things that you think that they would like you to do, or to stop doing the things that they would like you to stop doing. But this kind of relationship advice, it invalidates the one receiving the advice, and it immediately makes people feel uncomfortable, because they don't want to be the problem in the relationship. They want to be the one finding the solutions and saying, this is what we're going to do, and how everyone else is the problem. So when they try to communicate about the problem, they're basically just listing off some grievances that they have with the other person. But if you haven't read C.S. Lewis's The Problem with X, I think you should just go and read that, as it'll probably, as he's a much better writer than I am, a YouTuber. So I'll leave a link to that in the description so you can read it in its full. And if you do read it, or if you've read it before, come back and tell me what you think in the comments.